All right, last match incoming here. This is the 5th round of our league. We need to win this one in order to get our entry back, basically break even. This hand is very good, so we actually have our turn 1 accelerant again, which we haven't seen for a couple of games. And we get to accelerate into a collected company. So even on the draw, this one is going to help us catch back up. Swamp, eh? Well, in general, I like playing against Thoughtseize decks. Here, it's not great because I thought they were going to take our turn 1 Hierarch. They decided that the collected company was more important. I guess they don't have another discard spell. And maybe they just have like a bolt for the Hierarch, so they're not worried about it. If we're playing against Jund, I'd actually be pretty happy because that would be different from the other matchups that we've been playing against so far in this league. And I'd get to show off, how the Jund matchup plays out here. Alright, so it does look like Jund, which is good. Actually, I think we're a favorite in this matchup. And the collected companies are a big reason why. You saw our opponent already had to take that from our hand. As far as how we're going to play this one, our opponent doesn't know about this Aven Mind Sensor. If we just pass with 3 mana up, they'll probably figure it out, but maybe not. And once we play it, we'll be able to path our opponent. So I can take a hit from this Goyf, play the Mind Sensor next turn, which gives us protection from Liliana. It messes up with their fetch lands. And then if it lives, we get to Ghost Quarter them and path. So we should be in a pretty good spot. Obviously, passing with 3 mana here is going to be pretty suspicious when they know that we have 2 drops in our hand. This is definitely the risk with Mind Sensor, right? Because now we have to play it here, end of turn, let our opponent fetch, which is fine. It means that they didn't get to play Liliana this turn. The only thing I'm worried about is it getting killed. And then we don't get value off of the Ghost Quarter in the path. So for that reason, maybe I should have either played it main phase last turn or just played our 2-drop out and then Mind Censored with path or Ghost Quarter up on turn 4. But at this point, we just jam it, and then our opponent's going to fetch, and they'll probably kill the Mind Sensor here. Our opponent hadn't seen our hand. I think I like just passing with Mind Sensor, but since they had Thoughtseized us, know that we have turn 2 plays, and we just didn't cast them, I think I'd rather have just played a 2-drop. We still had protection from Liliana because we had the Noble Hierarch in play, so we could sacrifice that. And then we could have played Mind Sensor on turn 4. Now we get to just race our opponent here. I should have actually led with the land, I think. This way, if they want to kill the Mind Sensor in response to the Hierarch, we can Ghost Quarter in response to that removal spell. Yeah, I think our opponent should have played that earlier than they did. They should have played it on the end of their turn. I've not sequenced this particularly impressively. I could have done a much better job. If our opponent was tapped lower, I would company now, and then we could try to Ghost Quarter if we found an Arbiter. Since they have 2 mana up, I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to Ghost Quarter now either, so I might as well leave a white mana open so that we can path if we want to. If we miss here, Scavenging Ooze and a Thalia. So playing this now, our opponent might not be able to play a creature or like a fetch land untapped. So that might have changed our opponent's plans here. Just kind of what this deck does. It just like gets these little edges by playing things at certain phases of the turn that the opponent's like unexpecting or not expecting, and then they don't get to go to their second main phase and like play a 5th mana and play, you know, a Terminate and a Liliana or something. Just like messing with the opponent that small amount can be enough to interrupt their sequencing and win the game. And I might as well just path now. I'm going to cast it at some point here, so no reason to take more damage. I'm not going to play the second Scavenging Ooze just because of the potential for Maelstrom Pulse. So I'll just let this one go to work on the graveyards. Hopefully they don't have a Lightning Bolt here. Okay. So I'm just going to leave this as a 3/3 for now. We have 1 creature left in the yard, so if our opponent finds a bolt, we're going to want to respond to that. Terminate. All right, if that's the case, then I'm just going to play the second Scavenging Ooze here after the fact. And I will leave up the Ghost Quarter in case our opponent does something with Raging Ravine that we are not interested in. I don't think they'll be attacking, but no reason to leave up white mana. We don't have anything that we're going to play with it anyway. Second, Terminate. Okay. So is there anything we can take out of the graveyards to shrink our opponent's goyfs? There's a bunch of instants, a couple lands, and only 1 sorcery, so we can eat that. that's the match. Or not the match, sorry, that's the game. Deck and Stones again come in. I don't think we need 3. I don't usually play 3 in the 75. I usually play 2 in the sideboard and none in the main deck. So I think we can go up to 2. I don't know that we want to go up to a full 7. Spellskite's not needed because we have Collected Company. Cage is not needed. Rest in Peace I don't usually bring in. I don't see Grim Flayers, or at least I didn't yet. I didn't see Delve cards. If our opponent was playing like Tassigers or Gormag Anglers in addition to, you know, maybe their own Scavenging Oozes or, you know, Tarmogoyfs obviously is the big one that this hits. But I don't think in this matchup that we want it. Engineered Explosives, on the other hand, is pretty good because of the Tarmogoyfs. And then Dark Confidant, Scavenging Ooze, Grim Flare, potentially if they have it. So 8 answers to a bunch of our opponent's threats is important here. And we can take out Pride Mages. And I usually trim 1 bird. We do still want to have some acceleration, but top decking a Birds of Paradise is just pretty bad. If we're playing a more attrition, like longer game, I'd rather have, you know, real threats than Birds of Paradise. So I could even see taking out the second one. Maybe I would take it out for, I don't know, a Rest in Peace or a Declaration in Stone. I don't think any of our other cards here are that impactful that we can leave the bird in. I still want to draw one. Alright, this hand is pretty good. It at least interferes with our opponent playing a Liliana of the Veil on the play, which is nice. If our Hierarch gets bolted or Thought Seized, it's not good. Similar with a Lavamancer. We might have to deck and stone that. But I'm still going to run out this Hierarch. Lavamancer is a good way to get around the Thalias. Well, since they don't have any way to activate it, I think we're just going to what are we going to do? Play a second Hierarch and play a Thalia, and then our opponent will probably Lavamancer the Thalia. Problem is, we're going to need to answer that Lavamancer eventually. So I think we just deck and stone it now and play a second Hierarch. Yeah. If they have Anger of the Gods, we're going to get completely wrecked, but I'm not sure if that's something we're supposed to play around. So we can actually attack here because we're threatening to eat something with the Scavenging Ooze. If they have an instant, well, that's not good for us, but I don't think that they do. Alright, we're definitely going to start hitting our opponent's mana here. Use our first strike with Exalted to just start getting in damage. Now we can take our opponent off red mana completely. We can take them off green mana completely. The black mana is going to stick around. I think I'd rather take them off red mana. Well, maybe not. We want green mana gone for the Scavenging Oozes. But right now, Bolt is the card that we're worried about most. And we have more green mana than our opponent regardless. So I don't think they're going to be keeping up Scavenging Ooze activations when they're sitting on 2 lands. Alright, so we have to hit hold priority here. Tech Edge the Ravine. Wait. Hang on, let's make sure we're not Tech Edging ourselves. Tech Edge. Destroy that. Pay for ghost, or pay 1. Okay. Tech Edge, Blood Crypt. Now the other reason to do this, usually the basics that they play are swamps and forests. So if we do end up ghost quartering something later, they're going to be fetching out green mana or black mana, but not mountains. So if we hit both their red sources here, the ghost quarters will be better later on as well. And just as I say that, a basic mountain appears. So their mana is perfect and they have a basic mountain, which is pretty unusual. We can still make our attacks with Thalia. First Strike is just so powerful when you have Exalted. So Thalia does a lot of work both as a disruptive threat and then also as a great attacker. So now we can go ahead and play Rising Canopy, cycle that. Might have actually wanted to leave the Ghost Quarter open there. If we draw like a Mind Sensor or Lean and Arbiter, we could want to Ghost Quarter our opponent. Alright, well, Lavamancer is kind of scary, but we'll be able to eat all of our opponent's cards in the graveyard before they get a chance to use it anyway. At this point, Scavenging Ooze is actually the best threat. They would have to... they can't even triple block to kill it. Does the most damage, and Thalia is the best on defense because of the First Strike. Now we have to eat all of these things before they untap. Alright, well, easy match versus Jund. That is not far from how those matches usually play out in my experience. And we went 3-2 with the deck. I don't think this was the best showcase for what green-white or modern in general usually looks like. We had our first 2 matches of the league were, I don't know, reasonable game 1s, but then our opponents scooped pretty early in game 2 without even, I think we didn't even start the game, just based on their mulligan decisions and what they expected from the matchup. They went ahead and scooped it up. So we started 2-0. Then we played against Dredge, and we played against, what was round 4? We played against 2 matches that weren't close. Oh yeah, we played Elves, right? Dredge and Elves. So not exactly top tier decks in Modern, but you play against a lot of that nonsense, both online and at a Grand Prix, frankly. So it's just kind of what Modern is about these days. You play against a lot of random decks. You're not going to be able to interact with all of them. Green-white is very good at grinding, as we saw against Jund. So it's really good against mid-range decks. It's decent against control decks, unless they play a lot of sweepers. It's draw dependent against the linear, like very focused aggro decks, which is, what Modern is mostly about these days. So if you play against Boggles, if you play against Elves, green-white's not going to be a great place to be. If you play against Storm, if you play against Suicide Zoo, then you're going to be very happy playing green-white. So against those linear strategies, you can definitely win. You can sideboard in a way that gives you your best chance, but there are some matchups that you're just not going to be able to prepare for, and those are going to be, losses most of the time. Dredge in particular is a deck that is exactly the reason I didn't play the green-white against the last GP that I went to. I was just afraid of Dredge. It turned out I didn't face it once. I didn't even see it much around me. So I think going to an open tournament like a Grand Prix, I wouldn't not play a deck because you're afraid of a specific matchup. But it's just something to be aware of, that the Dredge matchup is not great against green-white. So play some extra sideboard cards if you think you're going to play it in your meta. And otherwise, I think the deck is very strong. Didn't get to see a lot of it in action in this league, but a little bit of a taste of it at least. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And thanks for watching.